Good morning again, everybody. Now we can tell us why we're here. I want to start out with a story about me and John Doerr. We were sitting together at the Maine Economic Growth Council one day last year, and we were looking at figures for the number of jobs in Maine and the kind of educated workforce that we have or we don't have, and how the numbers have been basically kind of flat for a while. And we were doing what we sometimes do with the Growth Council, which was have hysterics and wave our arms and scream and say, why isn't this getting better? Why isn't this getting better? And we finally looked at each other and said, well, what are we going to do about it? You know, if somebody would only know this information about what the actual job and career paths are in Maine, perhaps we could get rid of this stupid myth that there are no jobs, and we could get people connected with better pathways to further education. So we said, okay, how can we deal with that? And so we got some folks together, our steering committee, and we started thinking about how we can do that. And we thought of the name, the Maine Futures Institute, and then we got the steering committee, and I'd just like to say a couple of folks that are here. Sheena Bunnell, who's a professor of business economics here at UMF, Kathy Yardley, who's associate provost and dean of education here at UMF, John Doerr, now Chris Boudreau from the Maine Department of Labor, and we also had Suzanne Tivierge from the Maine Department of Labor Center for Workforce Information, and Moira Wallahan from my office, and together we have been thinking and plotting and planning and figuring out what to do. Basically what we decided to do was get a bunch of you folks together, folks from from K-12 education and from higher education here in Maine, students, faculty, guidance counselors, and so on, and we figured, well, one of the first things we should do is give this information. That is going to be a good thing, and John is going to do some of that. John Doerr is going to do a little bit of that later. We also thought we should show a couple of model programs, just so that we can all have some more ideas, and we have 3 model programs with us today. We have Navigating the Real World with Tom Tracy, who you've already heard about. We have Jobs for Maine Graduates with Craig Larrabee, who's here someplace, yes. And we have the Partnership and Gear Up program that started in Dixfield and has now spread all over Western Maine, which works with middle schools and high schools to raise college aspirations, and Dory Feldman is here from that program. They are going to be here. You can wander over and talk to them, just get some ideas. One thing I should say about each of those programs is today they look very healthy and happy and robust. They all started really small. You know, Gear Up was in one school, and Jobs for Maine Graduates was focused on a small bunch of folks at the beginning, and I don't know where Tom's ideas came from for Navigating the Real World, but he is, you know, he started small and he's growing large as well. So don't be intimidated by the fact that these are successful programs. They're much more fun to talk about than not successful programs anyway. So then we said, okay, we get these people together, what do we do? We would like to make a partnership with the Maine Department of Labor and UMF. We each bring strengths to a partnership. The Department of Labor, Center for Workforce Research and Information, they have the numbers. They know where the job market is going. They know a lot of stuff about the Maine economy and trends in the future. That's great. UMF, we know a lot about education. We know a lot about higher education. We have great connections with the schools through all sorts of ways, including, of course, preparing future teachers. Okay, so that's a natural. We have strengths we can bring to this. But what should we really do to change the picture, change the mindset in Maine about jobs and citizenship and futures And we said, we don't actually know what the best way is to do this, but if we get a bunch of really smart people together and we do some brainstorming and we give some facts and we think about ways to move forward, we can perhaps invent this thing as we go along. Our basic job, I think, is to change the story that you have to leave Maine to get ahead. You know, if anywhere you go to talk about higher education, K-12 education, the future of Maine, everybody comes out with this tired old story every single time about how if you want to have a job, you have to go away. You know, at UMF, 80% of our students are right here in Maine as alumni. You know, so there's something wrong with this picture in everybody's minds that you have to go away. What do you have to go away for? They're all here. You know, that is a truth about a lot of education in Maine. You know, it is not true that you have to go away. It is true that there are jobs in Maine, and I think John will tell us about some of those. And in fact, some feels it's hard to fill the jobs. We could do a lot better. But you know, right now the governor says there are no jobs, the commissioners say it, the chancellor says it, but the reality is that there are ways that people can move ahead right here in Maine. The other thing is we need those people to stay here, and we need to attract more people to Maine. If we don't do this, then what we're going to be left with is we're going to be left with a museum of the past, with everybody over 65 and the younger ones that are here taking care of us. You know, this is not a good future. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do some brainstorming in our teams and across our teams to figure out how can we tell the story of Maine, how can we affect the future of Maine such that we can create a vibrant economy and a civil society and a bright future for our state. One thing that I would emphasize slightly different from what John Butera said is it is a lot more than training. Training is important, but education is really the key. We are educating for people for jobs that have not been invented. We cannot do that by targeting a bunch of skills and a bunch of narrowly focused occupations that we know about now and think that that's going to save us in the future. We have to do creativity, we have to do inventiveness, we have to do flexibility, we have to do entrepreneurial skills. Those are the things, besides the harder skills, as it were, that we really have to concentrate on. If we don't do those things, we're fried. We don't want to be fried. So, questions for us all later today is what can we do together? What should we do together? How can we make baby steps or medium steps along the lines to help not only economic development, but also civic development, civil society, and entrepreneurial creativity with our rising generation of students. We have a few students here. I hope that we're going to hear their voices. They have some ideas that nobody else is going to have. So I urge us all to listen to them carefully. Right now, I think we're going to go on to giving some a little time for networking, question and answers, and so on, and then we will come back and John will move right into the presentation that he is going to give, but we're not going to wait till 10 o'clock to do that. I think we can have about a 10-minute break so people can refuel their coffee and get to know each other, and we will get started at 9 o'clock with John's presentation.